Welcome everyone to the CFO Swinger Watch Report technical analysis video for the trading week of April 7th through 11th. Now, the following research in each and every single weekly report is a chance at applying your own learn and earn trading system. On top of that, the combination of the weekly report and this technical analysis video will give you a complete top-down analysis on the overall markets and individual trade ideas. Overall, every report will be giving you full guidance in the upcoming trading week, allowing you to cut down on the extensive research time that is usually needed to achieve a very successful trading week. So, make sure to join us if that is something that truly aligns to your trading goals. Take a look down at the description box down below to start that trading journey with us. With that, let's get into the markets. So in front of our screens, you guys have the S&P 500 ETF on the weekly time frame. Now, I can already tell that you guys think that there's a lot going on here. Well, that's due to the fact that TradingView converges all the trend lines that I've made on all the higher time frames like the monthly, weekly, and daily, which is the reason why there are a bunch of lines here. But again, do not fret. I'll be focusing on the very important levels that we need to look at based on the current price action. So with that being said, let's dial in to this area right here on the weekly time frame. So last week's candlestick, very, very ugly, right? Look at this nasty rejection from the weekly 50 SMA. There's going to be a lot of constructive price action that's going to be needed in order for the price to get back, or at least retest with this weekly 50 SMA far into the future, and most likely late this year if we even get a good bottom to form. So with this price action last week, obviously very rapid move to the downside, and this increase in velocity and increase in market vol is very concerning, which is the reason why we need to focus particularly in this specific area that I've already shaded in green. So specifically, that range is from $490.50 to $500. So this is the next major psychological level that we need to absolutely hold if we were to see some sort of an oversold bounce, or at least a relief rally this week. Now, why do we need a relief rally this week? Well, again, this is a very, very rapid, very, very quick sell-off, full of velocity, full of momentum to the downside, where it just makes sense where we wash out the late short sellers that are trying to get in at the bottom tick of whatever bottom that we form early this week, maybe even tomorrow on Monday morning. And we need to see a bunch of early buyers who are just willing to trade an oversold bounce to come in and provide that sort of liftoff for that relief rally to begin. So again, the psychological $500 level on the weekly time frame is critical for buyers to defend. Now, in next few coming weeks, if we do hold this $500 psychological level and we do see a relief rally, I also would not be surprised for us to make a lower high. Okay, I'll explain and go over where that lower high could be if we do see a relief rally this week. And if we do move lower from that lower high pivot point, I would expect the price to find some sort of consolidation in between this range here of $490.50 as the lower range level of support, and then $500 as the upper range level of resistance. Okay, now from a bigger picture perspective, there's still that possibility of the price to come all the way back down to this pivot high point that we saw in late 2021. right? And obviously early 2022 as well. And so that level is somewhere around 477.50, which could possibly converge with the weekly 200 SMA. Okay, so that's something to be a little bit concerned about, because that is a possibility, a real possibility, and it's selling worsens into later this year, into mid-year, or even the second half of this year. We can even see 460 being retested. And if you guys remember, 460 was a large all-time high level, resistance level to watch out for back in 2023 before we retested late 2021 to early 2021 highs. Right, so obviously we're not going to go there just yet, but again, this 477.50 is more of an important level since, like, again, it is a lot closer to where we are at currently. Okay, so we need to take things very, very, well, from a simplistic perspective and standpoint when it comes to such a large, very quick, momentum-filled move to the downside. Okay, so make sure you guys have very simple targets set in mind from a larger time frame perspective, like the weekly and the monthly time frames. Okay, so that is it for SPY. Let's take a look at QQQ. So NASDAQ, basically the same story here. All right, so again, there's a lot of lines here, but I'm going to deconstruct where we need to look at. Okay, so obviously we had this major line in the sand at 450 that I pointed out back in the August move lower. However, obviously with this large velocity filled and momentum filled move lower last week, we completely ignored the buyers that were potentially sitting here at 450 and completely washed them out and broke the support completely, and we ended up closing right below the August's low of last year. So now I wouldn't be surprised if we decide to revisit April's lows of last year when we had that kind of a very quick correctional move to the downside, and that will be around 413. Okay, 413. So this is pretty interesting to see, because if we do hold 413, then we have this kind of wide demand area from 413 to around 430-ish, right? This level right here, which is slightly above the August lows here. And this could provide us with some, at least a relief rally if we do see a larger sell-off again earlier in this week, maybe again tomorrow morning, and possibly set us up for a very nice quick bounce back to 430, or maybe even higher, maybe to 440, who knows, right? Again, we still need to wait and see if we even do get a relief rally first. Or another possibility is that we can get another very quick bounce to the upside, maybe even a small gap up, depending on how overnight futures move tonight, right? So there's a lot of possibilities that come up to mind, especially when we have such volatility and an expanded market vol combined with some huge momentum selling to the downside. Okay, so but that's another reason why technical analysis matters a lot, because it works. So this 413 to 430 range is pretty large. It's a lot wider compared to the range that we just looked at from for SPY, but when we do come back down to around 413, which we most likely will in the next couple of weeks, as long as we do see that relief rally, as I've explained for SPY as well, we can consolidate around 413, and also, just like with SPY, we can revisit the previous all-time high levels sitting around early 2021 and late 2021 and early 2022, which is going to be right around this 402.35-ish level. Or again, if you guys just want to round down to the whole number level, 402. Or obviously we have that psychological whole number level of $400. Okay, and that should also, at that point, I would assume that the weekly 200 SMA has risen far enough for it to reach the psychological $400 level, and we can see the price converging at the level simultaneously with the weekly 200 SMA. Okay, so again, similar story here playing out with the S&P 500 ETF. right? And so again, there's a lot of fear out there. The sentiment is very, very negative, which is the reason why I want to see a relief rally this week. And again, it's going to be very much an active traders market environment. So please be careful when you're trying to swing something overnight, as things can change just like that. Okay, like the snap of my fingers here. And you guys have to be careful and watch out for any headline news that comes out overnight or even early in the morning before the market opens. Okay, now before we move on to the official swing trade idea for this week, well, it could be a day trade idea as well, and I'll explain why soon. Let's take a look at VIX. Okay, so VIX. So this is the mother of all candlesticks here in the most recent weeks on this weekly time frame. Obviously, we have yet to retake the highs from August when we had that huge volatility expansion, and obviously that the complementing volatility crush, right? As we had that huge move down in market vol and that huge contraction to the downside, which allowed the markets to bounce back very, very quickly. However, as I stated multiple times before, around late February, I was suspecting that this move up higher in the VIX was starting to look very constructive, right? And with constructive selling comes increased selling pressure in the overall markets and more of a constructive expansion in the overall market vol. And that usually leads into some, again, increased selling and increased velocity of that same type of selling, which will automatically contribute to the market vol having a massive move up like this, right? So now, you guys must have seen a lot of social media posts about the VIX here and there, about how it has a lot more room to the upside. It's most likely going to retest the highs of August of last year, or that it's going to hit 50, the value 50 first before it moves down. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen next, right? Especially during times of uncertainty and a lot of fear ruling and running the markets. So for now, all we need to understand from this chart, the current data that we have right now, the data sets that we have now from the market price action from last week, is that, well, the market conditions aren't looking good. Okay, and so with this very massive move up, obviously we can still expect to see some sort of a market contraction, market vol contraction, because we are expecting to see a potential snapback rally, at least from an oversold condition that we are currently in right now, from a technical perspective, obviously, but again, when we're taking a look at the VIX here, this is a very massive move up, which can further slide higher. All right, we can still see market vol expanding as we saw in this week, the very first week of August, right, when we had the carryover trade, the yen carryover trade. Again, I'm not going to go over that. I went over that plenty of times during this month of August, right? So with VIX here, again, it's tricky, right, because the markets are so unstable, so riddled with fear and uncertainty that you don't want to be tripping yourself over with where the VIX could potentially, quote unquote, top. All right. Okay, so with that being said, let's take a look at the trade idea for this week. It's not PSTG, okay, but RDDT, Reddit. Okay, so, okay, now I have not actually provided the entry points for Reddit on this technical analysis video because it's a bit more nuanced than just providing an entry point, okay? And I've written why in the actual report. So please make sure you guys read the report first before you watch this technical analysis video. And if you guys are up to this point right now, and if you guys have not read the report first, please pause this video and go back to the report and read from the top all the way to the bottom thoroughly. All right, so Reddit here. All right, so this is potentially a great looking stock to hold into the Tariff war, right? Because this company really isn't Influenced, I would say, by the Tariff war. I mean, this is just an internet company that is focused on Reddit posts, subreddits. Now, I'm not really well versed into the Reddit world, the universe of Reddit. So, you know, I'm not a professional at explaining what Reddit exactly is. But again, this is a company that is focused on, well, on the internet, right? So this company seems like it'll be a rather prudent decision to be focused on this type of a company during these turbulent times where the overall economy can actually be affected. But this individual ticker might just be a ticker to be looking at where the economic oscillations won't really matter too much into the near to long-term future. All right, so with that being said, this ticker could be providing us with a very, very nice opportunity or even opportunities this week, especially if you are an active trader. So first of all, on the weekly time frame, we had just filled in the earnings gap up here, right? So let me actually show you guys that in more detail on the daily time frame. So it's massive big gap up on earnings day back in October of last year, late October, and last Friday we closed that gap to a couple of cents, right? So the actual gap high, the gap low here is what I should say, was at 82.98, and last Friday's low of the day was at 82.80, right? So this gap fill came down to a couple of cents, and then the price immediately pivoted and bounced back up higher, because again, when we do tend to see gap fills to the downside, when we're filling a gap that is to the upside, right? When the price is moving down, to fill in that gap up to the upside, we still tend to see buyers trying to defend the last line, the line in the sand here, which is the gap up lows, right, which is at 82.98 for this specific ticker. So I'm glad that the price reacted this way. Now, I'm not too sure if we're going to see the price come back down to retest it again, but if it does that, there could be a possibility for scalpers and active traders out there to potentially go long at this spot again for potential double bottom on the intraday time frame. But there's also a possibility for the price to break below 82.98 and move further down. Okay, and that's where we have to go back to the weekly time frame, because if that does occur, if that second situation does occur, that scenario, well, there's a even better pivot or level to retest for an actual larger, longer term pivot to be able to be sustained by buyers, and that is the 76.20 level. Why? Well, that was the previous all-time high level, and it was also a major resistance level as well back in July, well, all of July for 2024, and also back in October of 2024 as well. And obviously we had a nice large breakout that continued to have an explosive breakout to the upside and consistent new all-time high. So this is a major level to hold and retest if we go back down to 80, if we decide to break below, rather, 82.98. So again, obviously, if you guys want to go short at 82.98, if we do see some good selling pressure coming back down once we break below 82.98, then that's great, because you have an easy target towards 76.20. Or if you want to be a swing trader on this specific ticker and wait for an actual retest of 76.20, if we break below 82.98, then you guys can wait for that and see an early entry point at 76.20 and be a part of a potential relief rally to the upside. Now, that is the reason why I gave you guys no official entry points here, and I gave you guys more of a nuanced description in the report. So again, please read the 3-point game plan in the report. So on a technical perspective, on the RSI, the relative strength index perspective, the weekly RSI is nearly getting there. And what I mean by that is that, well, it's almost at oversold levels. Last Friday or last week, we ended at 35.91 for the value of the RSI. All right, if it reaches 30, officially at 30 or even below 30, that will be oversold. And so I truly believe that if we do break below 82.98 and if we reach 76.20, we'll be extremely oversold on the weekly time frame. Okay, and that's not even on the daily time frame, right? That's on the weekly time frame, which will give us a higher probable chance that there could be a very good relief bounce, or at least an oversold, a very oversold actually, bounce at the 76.20 level. Okay, now if you go on the daily time frame, we are already oversold, but there's still a chance that we could be seeing actually a higher low being formed on a daily time frame for the RSI, and that could mean that we can have a potential hidden bullish divergence. Okay, so I don't know if it's going to look like this, right? Or maybe even if we go lower to 76.20, maybe the RSI line just goes down maybe around to like 27 or 28, who knows, right? But my point being here is that we could be seeing a higher low forming on the RSI and obviously a lower low on the price, which will give us a hidden RSI bullish divergence, which can provide even more fuel for buyers to want to hold at this 76.20 level and providing us a very quick snapback rally to the upside to give us that overall oversold bounce on both the weekly and daily time frames. Okay, and also for the fact that if the market makers or even retail investors realize that Reddit shouldn't be that much affected or inflicted by or any type of consequences that are born out of these tariffs or a trade war, it won't affect the company. This company will most definitely be a great company to buy the dip, right? Literally, since, well, this company has hit a high, an all-time high of 230.41, and it wasn't too long ago when it hit this number, right? It was on February 10th, right? But now it feels such a long time ago, right? This is what happens when we have these massive drawdowns to the downside, right? It feels like the markets have just absolutely given up on everything and time has flown by. But again, as I've said in the market summary, we will prevail and we will survive. All right, so I kind of want to end that on a more optimistic tone. So hopefully, you guys are able to see the nuances on Reddit here, and obviously, hopefully, the markets and retail investors and institutional traders or institutions overall are able to realize that maybe this company will most likely not be impacted by any of the consequences that are born of this current costly trade war. Alright, so that is it for this video. If this technical analysis video was very insightful and most importantly, applicable, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you are new here and you aren't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. But also, if you're watching this video when it just became public and you would like to watch this video when it's private, the only thing that you need to do is become one of the many readers of the CFO Swinger Watch Report, which will also automatically give you full access to the private CFO Discord community where you can expedite and further your learning in trading. Again, you guys can find all of that information down below in the description box. All right, good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.